What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again. And this time we are here with Jim and James of Mastiff. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's great to have you guys here today.
Oh,
Cool.
thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so awesome to have you here. I was just listening to the album Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth. This album is sheer insanity. It is the sound of absolute savagery in one apparatus of just a killer compound disc. I was totally winging that as well, may I just say it. But
You did well.
in terms of the making of this album, was your intention to just make a direct continuation from what we heard off of Plague, or was this intended to be almost kind of like a new star for Mastiff in a way?
Um, um, I kind of guessed a little bit both. I mean, we never really sort of like start writing, saying, right, this is the new album. This is how it's going to sound. We just kind of like, we get through a cycle of making one record, maybe have a little bit of a break while we're, playing a sort of first batch of shows off the back of that. And then we just kind of crack on writing again without, we don't point ourselves in a specific direction. We just kind of see what comes out. And then usually sort of 3 or 4 songs into the process of writing, we get a little bit more of an idea of what kind of thing we're doing next, and then that maybe influences the next sort of batch of songs until we feel we're happy that we've got a finished album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this may be kind of like a silly question, but I'm always curious because I think that this album, like the title of it, actually really pulls me in. It really intrigues me. And going from rank to plague, those are very short, 1-syllable words, to what I consider to be a statement: "Leave me the ashes of the earth." I mean, I know artists hate this, but in terms of the meaning behind this title, was there a specific message that was trying to be conveyed, or is this like a personal statement that you're expressing?
It's not, well, it was sort of, we'd heard it, do you know Oliver Reed, the old English actor, sorry, God, he had heard him quote it, and I was like, oh man, that is so cool. So pretty much we'd sort of stumbled across it that way. But it did convey quite a lot of the feelings on the album. So that's where it came from, pretty much.
Yeah, I always love it when there's kind of like an essence of literature or another artist that influenced. Like As It Lay Dying, the band was named after a book, and then you have like certain bands that like use elements of literature and certain elements of other art in a way. So it's really cool how art sort of influences art.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Like you said, it just kind of you brought it to us because the album didn't have a title for a long time. I think it was only a matter of days before we recorded it that Jim kind of brought that the title to us, and like you said, it just kind of fit.
It does fit very well.
Yeah, because we felt that the songs this time were a little broader in scope than we'd sort of written before, and it felt fitting to have a title that was a bit less kind of blunt force, a bit more, like
a bit clever. Yeah, just a clever album title, because Plague was, it's almost a concept album is Plague. So it wrote, it gave itself its name. Whereas like Bork and Rank, they were not kid titles, but they were very, I don't know, just sort of numb, blunt. Yeah, just very easy to be. You know what you're getting with them almost. So this one's, it's just it is an easier or a better title to pull you in, like You've Been Done.
Yeah. Do you think that the first 2 singles that you released off of this album, Repulse and Endless, maybe give a good representation of what's the entirety of this album is going to sound like, or is there a lot more to be discovered and that's just the tip of the iceberg? I'm asking that for people who may have not have heard the album yet.
Sure. I mean, I think the reason that we chose those songs, especially Endless, as the first single, is because it kind of is indicative of the whole album in the sense that it kind of starts one way and goes kind of like a weird direction that the intro and the first part of the song maybe doesn't signify how it's going to end. And I think like we have a kind of through line through the record, but I don't think any song really sounds exactly like each other. So I think Endless was a good way to sort of dip the toes into the album, just because it is quite an unpredictable song in itself, and that sets that precedent. Like, you might think you're going to get this, but then you're probably going to get something else. And that's why, you know, Repulse, again, is sort of quite a different kind of song to Endless. And then we've got a third single that's coming out this week, Midnight Creeper, which is, again, just like not really anything like either of those songs, apart from that it kind of makes you want to punch things.
Yeah. Well, what I find unique about this album is, or even just your band in general, is that I see elements that would, like, you know, there's elements of like deathcore in there, but there's elements of like slam, there's elements of hardcore, but then it's also like raw enough to where it has like a doomy aspect behind it. So it's almost fair to say that there's multiple sources of inspiration and a fair amount of experimentation in the songwriting process as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, we've always been, you know, because of all, you know, the age range in the band also has an influence on it, because we're all into different stuff and we've all been brought up on different genres. So you're always going to get quite a good mix. You know, from the five of us throwing stuff into the hat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Mastiff were always had like elements from certainly like doom and hardcore were kind of like the two. So when I joined the band, that was like the primary elements. And then I just think as like myself and Dan, our bass player, joined a bit later on, we kind of brought our own things into it. But then that in turn sort of like influenced the other guys in the band, and they started sort of like approaching certain things differently. And again, it's just a melting pot of 5 different takes on the same kind of idea.
Yeah.
And just that, yeah, you end up with something that is like kind of everything and also like nothing else at the same time. Or I hope so. Anyway.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the debut album for signing with E1 as well, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. Yes.
Yep. Congratulations. They're great people. Huge shout out to everybody there. But I mean, I feel like E1 has really been a great label at getting like a lot of these new school sort of like hardcore slam bands like really on their feet. I mean, Body Snatcher's a good example. You got Great American Ghost. Yeah. You got Plague Years. I mean, did it just almost feel like a match made in heaven to sign with E1? That had to have been like a really didn't even think about it. Just like they're the ones, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We were, obviously anyone considers you've got to read the fine print, but yeah, it was, when you start seeing that roster, from those bands up to things like Crowbar, which have been a massive influence on us, from the early days. So yeah, it was pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think when we sort of first contact was made with E1, and we, after we all sort of picked our jaws up off the floor, that they didn't even consider. Speaking to a shitty band like us, we sort of looked at their roster, and it's clear that they're not a label that's trying to like hop on trends or even like point themselves in a specific direction. Like there are some fantastic like heavy record labels out there that have a very sort of distinct roster, and that you hear a band and they're like, oh, they're on that label, and like yeah, that makes sense. Whereas there's the only real consistency in E1 Heavy's roster of bands is a kind of, I guess, like a level of like quality and a level of like care that the bands obviously have, and that E1 obviously like put into the signing these bands and like helping them. So it was, we didn't feel like we were going to be just kind of, oh, here's the next, X label band. It's like, oh, let's see what E1 are doing now. And it just happened to be us.
They have a very diverse roster as well, from Black Label Society to Crowbar to the Contortionist to Body Snatcher. So like you have your fair share of and I mean, if you look at their previous history as well, I mean, I believe Hatebreed was on E1 at one point, and
like the Chariot was, and like they're just.
And you got bands like Avatar as well, which are like what?
Just like old, like they really do sort of run the entire spectrum of heavy music, and I also, it felt like none of the bands that were already signed to E1 really, like we didn't like completely match up with anyone, so it didn't feel like they've not just had like one band that's like hit pay dirt and they're like, oh, we just need another band that sounds like that and we'll do it again. Like,
yeah,
you know, there are other heavy bands like Creeping Death and like Body Snatcher and stuff, but
yeah,
we don't sound like them and they don't sound like each other. And...
yeah, there's no Nickelbacks to worry about.
Oh, well, there might be now.
maybe it's you guys. Maybe it's you guys. You never know.
Yeah, we're the shitbacks of the...
Oh my god, if you could do a Nickelback, actually that's my way of like totally messing with metal elitists. I take their favorite band and I sing it in a Nickelback voice, like yeah,
well, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have a diehard. I have a Metallica. I remember totally almost getting killed one night because I was talking with some radical Metallica elitist, you know, everything after the Black albums. So I just like sang one to him and like I was like, I can't remember anything. Can't tell if this is true or a dream. So
the sad fact of the matter is there's like a great chunk of Metallica's discography where it's not a big leap to sing their songs in the style of Nickelback.
Fair enough. You might have just garnered a lot of controversy right now, but yeah, better early than never.
Sorry, no offense to Metallica. I'm sure they're not.
Get it done earlier in the career. Get it done earlier in the career. You'll garner some headlines.
I'm more worried about Kroger getting upset.
Fair enough.
No, he's got millions of dollars. I'm sure he'll live.
On a more serious note, because you've also mentioned that you know there are some lyrical meanings that you address. You mentioned that Plague was sort of like a concept album in a way. And I will say that in the era that we're living in now, that album has more context now than it did in 2019. But
it does, but then the Plague, it's not quite as clean cut as just Plague as in Plague. It was more of a to do with social media and all that shit with that. So
yeah,
that was more of a modern Plague idea to me.
It just happened that a year after it came out,
but
everyone from the world. Yeah.
Do you sometimes though think of like a concept or a lyrical messaging before there's even any music, and that maybe could help influence the music itself? Do you need music before any lyrical ideas come into play?
I think not. If I'm honest, I think I have to go into a room and listen to what they're playing. I do have ideas, but generally it's to get the feel of it, and then I make noises over it till I get a feel for it, and then go away and write stuff. So it works the other way really for myself. But yeah, there is a few dark meanings on it, but I think the personal stuff I got rid of on Plague. It was very cathartic as an album. So this one is just a bit more. There's no politically charged particularly songs on it, but it is sort of. It's a very more, I suppose you could say political album, but not, there is still some very personal stuff on it, and for all of us as well. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, you were saying?
Sorry, I was going to say, and the rest of the boys sort of had an input a bit more on the lyrics this time as well. So it was quite, it was more of a team effort, this one.
Do you want the music to be open to interpretation, or do you try to get the listener into the lyricism or the message or the meaning as much as the music itself?
Because it is personal. Well, there's certainly the personal ones. I don't think I know kids who go, you're speaking to me. I've been through whatever, blah 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 situations. Everyone goes through. Everybody's lives a situation, and generally. Kids get the meaning of songs, but I think a lot of these are very open to personal interpretation. So, I mean, it's up to the listener to choose if they get into it or not. But from my personal point of view, it's written as a not a private moment, but it's just written as a getting it off my chest, I suppose.
Yeah, it's more of like you feel like it's more of I feel like your lyricism has the best of both worlds in terms of confronting and addressing a situation, but also escaping the situation at the same time. There's an element of closure and an element of addressing.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's the cathartic feeling sort of thing, and and playing it every night or every time we play it, it dissolves the situation in your head slightly more every time you play it. So
And the final question I actually wanted to talk about is the sort of scene that you're brought up in, because I feel like, Mastiff does have a great hardcore grit behind it and a real like hardcore sound. And I mean, I think the UK nowadays has been almost kind of like, I've always said actually that the UK's greatest export was core bands, because you have New England that is like the Kill Switch, All That Remains, Shadows Fall Capital, and now Australia with the Parkway Drives and Hardest Wakes and Thy Artist Murders, and it all originated in England, home of Bring Me the Horizon and Asking Alexandria and so on. But it seems like in the
you all sat there in a Silosis shirt, so
yep, of course, I was representing. But is it fair to say, because I mean, in the wake of bands rising up like Employed to Serve or Loathe, but then some more like a band like Vexed or As Everything Unfolds, and I know there's different areas of the UK, but is there kind of like a hardcore scene that you all are sort of involved with, or that you all play with each other, or everybody knows each other?
There were certainly there are some cities that serve as kind of hubs more than others, in terms of like you will find like stronger presences of heavy bands in certain, like we find like Manchester's a really great city for playing the kind of music we play. There's a really big and varied heavy scene in Manchester. There's a lot of kind of doom and stoner, but also there are bands like Leached who are just crazy, like kind of almost like industrial kind of death metal hardcore, however you want to describe them.
And Leeds, which is just up the road from us, they have a very strong sort of hardcore, and also Venom Prison. Some of them are from there as well, and so yeah, we don't really get to play that much together, although we'd love to.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's still a massive. To us, it's still a massive country, not compared to somebody like yourself and living in America. But yeah, the music scene here seems to be very, very good at the moment as well. So.
Yeah, and we do sort of cross paths with like the other bands that we sort of love ourselves and respect, and enough that you do still feel a sense of sort of like national community to it. We might not get to play with this, the same sort of bands week in, week out, but everyone kind of stays in touch. And I think because the last couple of years, it's sort of hard to sort of use that example for it because there've been virtually no shows, but certainly sort of up to the end of 2019, you just sort of, you share a show with a band, you get on with that band, you like that band, and then you just stay in touch. And then next time they're, your neck of the woods or you're where they are, even if you don't play together, like the bands will come and support each other. And, we do kind of, I think, the bands that are sort of really invested in the kind of a wider heavy scene in the UK do put an effort in to
travel.
To travel and to maintain those connections, to make sure that some semblance of a scene sort of stays alive. Certainly from an international perspective, where people like yourself are kind of looking over at our little country, and the fact that you can reel off so many bands that both sort of mid legacy bands. I feel weird calling Bring Me the Horizon a legacy band, but like bands that have been sort of doing it for the last sort of 15 years or so, and then again newer bands like Venom Prison or Employed to Serve that are making a bigger impact now. It's it's really cool for us and for them, and just I guess for everyone, that there's a little bit more visibility coming onto the UK.
Yeah, definitely. And I've always said that there's two types of people where everybody knows each other. That's senior citizens and hardcore kids. So like, so I think I do see an essence of community. Like I've referenced those bands to the countless other UK bands that I interviewed Venom Prison when they came here to America. And I mean, they knew who Loathe was. They knew who all of these bands were, and same here. Like you guys, Employed to Serve was not a unheard of name before. So it seems like there is a tight knit community, even if like Liverpool is different from Manchester, which is different from London, or etc.
Well, you'll always get that one band that's, you know, the hardcore scene always seems to rise above everything else. So yeah, you will get the bands from all over the country still poking their heads above the rest, which is cool.
Definitely. So before we go, I want to thank you both so much for your time today. It's great to be able to talk with you. I also want to point out that this is the best Zoom interview I've ever done in a car, because not once did the internet cut out. Normally, like I've done a couple of Zoom interviews while the people were driving too, and that just made me very uncomfortable.
No.
And I just want to say, no matter how many times I've talked to people from the UK, I still can't get used to that side that the steering wheel's on either. So, but
I'm going backwards, to be fair. We are driving.
Is there just anything else that you would like to promote with the release of the new album? Like, is there a chance you could come to the States one day? Any shows coming up that you'd like to plug, or anything else?
We would, yeah. I mean, without, you know, stating the obvious, yes, we would love to come to the States, and we would love to play for you a lot.
We're just kind of waiting on the world to
return to some sort of
settle a little bit, and for kind of borders to start properly reopening to you know, small time people like us that can't just throw money at traveling. But we'd love to come to the States. Obviously, for all of us. I mean, one of the first things that we chatted about with E1 when we talked to them was they were like, you know, we need to get you guys over here as soon as is feasible, and you know, that was one of the obviously big things that excited us, because we've never been, even outside of the UK, we've never even been to like the mainland Europe yet, so hopefully we can do all that soon-ish.
You gotta be really rebellious. All right, I've been telling bands to come to the US. Here's what you got to do. Just, what is one thing that's always getting imported to the States? Apple products, right? So just
I think it's drugs.
Yeah. Maybe that too, but that sounds a little more sinister. You might have a harder time with that. But Apple products, so just put a giant Apple logo underneath all of your gear casing and everything like that, and then just hide in there. They won't even get a second look. Just 10,000 more iPads. All right, let them go. And then
just post ourselves to someone. Yeah. Wait, if the box turns up, please open it quickly, because we might be out of breath.
But hey, that's really hardcore right there. Nothing is more hardcore than sneaking into another country to play a show.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe when your like border control is less terrifying, we'll try something like that.
Yeah. I'll send this interview to Foreign Affairs. But
I think our drummer likes cavity statues.
But thank you guys so much, everybody. We are here with Mastiff. Be sure to check out their brand new album coming out very soon via E1. This album is badass. It's called Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.